This morning, we honor Black History Month with a story about paying tribute to people who were once overlooked. A few years ago, an editor at the New York Times noticed a big disparity in the newspaper's obituaries. They featured mostly men and not many women and people of color. Meg Oliver introduces us to the devoted obituary writer who's making sure we know more about the remarkable people who blazed a trail.
What do you find down here?
This place is absolutely gold for any obit researcher.
Deep below street level in the morgue at the New York Times is where obituary editor Amy Padnani goes digging. From an old-school card catalog to rows of file cabinets, the room is stuffed with more than 170 years of history.
How hard is it to get into the New York Times obituary?
You have to have done something pretty remarkable, invented something everybody uses, changed the way of life for society at large or a group of people.
Since 1851, the Times has published thousands of obituaries, from heads of state and scientists to celebrities and athletes. But during a research project in 2017, Padnani realized many trailblazers, especially women and people of color, were overlooked. People like Sylvia Plath and Ida B. Wells.
I thought, yeah, why is that? So when I approached my team to ask this question, they said, well, obituaries are a rear view look at society at a time when women and people of color weren't invited to the table to make a difference. I just didn't find that answer very satisfying.
In 2018, she launched Overlooked, a series in the obituary section to remember notable women who were left out. She eventually expanded the following year for Black History Month to include people of color. 7 years later, it's still going strong. This month, she is publishing the obituaries for Maria Stewart, the first Black woman to speak publicly about racial and gender equality in the 1830s, to Annie Easley.
Annie Easley, for instance, is a scientist who worked for NASA.
And Lena Richard.
Lena Richard was the first Black person to host a cooking show.
The first Black woman to host a cooking show in 1949 before she could eat at the lunch counter.
That's correct.
How was she overlooked?
We ask this question all the time.
The overwhelming response from readers compelled her to publish a book featuring 66 more stories of remarkable people, including Diane Patrick's grandfather, Sinclair Clark.
How would you describe your grandfather?
I never knew him, so I can only describe him as a rock star taxidermy tanner.
A rock star taxidermist?
Yes.
Clark's work is on display at museums around the world, including the American Museum of Natural History in New York.
What did it mean to you to see your grandfather's obituary printed?
It meant that I had something that I could now show to some of the institutions that he worked in.
Patrick discovered her paternal grandfather 2 years before he died. Even then, she didn't know that he worked on the iconic Hall of African Mammals in the museum.
His methods became the standard for these dioramas in this museum and other museums.
The gold standard around the world.
Yes.
It seemed to me he might have been kind of quiet about his own achievements. So I just think he didn't get the attention he deserved in his lifetime, which is part of the reason the Times may not have heard of him at the time that he died.
Overlooked trailblazers finally receiving their due recognition. For CBS Mornings, I'm Meg Oliver in New York.
I love that story.
You know what I love about that is that not every trailblazer is loud. They may be proud, but they're not loud about their achievements.
And we don't know about them.
And we don't know about them.
But
And
now we do.
this is a way to celebrate it.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
It
It
is a
really
great
is.
idea.
A great book as well.